What would you do if 24 hours after the most passionate night of your life, your body started dying from the inside out? Sheikh Khalid Al Mansour, 52 years old, worth billions, feared by world leaders, thought he was untouchable. One night in Geneva, he met a flight attendant at a luxury hotel bar. She was beautiful, mysterious, and seemingly ordinary. Have you ever made a decision based purely on desire, ignoring every warning sign your gut was screaming at you? Have you ever trusted someone just because they looked the part? By the next morning, Khalid's organs were shutting down. His fingernails turned blue. His gums bled without reason. Within 6 weeks, this powerful oil magnate, who once made presidents wait for his phone calls, was dead. But here's what terrifies me most about this story: the woman vanished like smoke. No trace. No real identity. As if she was never there at all. Before we dive into how one night destroyed a man worth more than entire countries, I need you to do something. If stories like this, where power, betrayal, and deadly consequences collide, captivate you, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to reveal will change how you think about trust forever. And honestly, if you're watching this content but haven't subscribed yet, what's stopping you? These investigations take months of research. The least you can do is show some support, right? The question isn't whether Khalid deserved what happened to him. The question is, who was she, and how many others has she killed? To understand how a billionaire oil magnate became prey, you need to understand the man behind the headlines. Sheikh Khalid Al Mansour lived 2 completely different lives. By day, he was the picture of respectability, speaking at international conferences about tradition, family values, and regional stability. He donated millions to charities, shook hands with diplomats, and presented himself as a pillar of his community. But when the sun went down, Khalid transformed into someone else entirely. Monaco penthouses filled with champagne and strangers. Secret yachts anchored in Mediterranean waters where anything could happen. A string of encounters with women whose names he never bothered to remember past sunrise. This wasn't just wealth enabling bad behavior, this was a man actively courting danger because he believed his money made him immune to consequences. Think about someone you know who lives a double life. Maybe they present one face to their family and another to their friends. Maybe they're different people online versus in person. Now multiply that contradiction by billions of dollars and international influence. That's what made Khalid. His business associates knew but said nothing, they feared his retaliation. Everyone around Khalid had a reason to ignore the warning signs. And that's exactly what someone was counting on. For 20 years, he'd been playing this dangerous game without consequences. Every successful night of deception convinced him he was smarter than everyone else. Every morning he woke up unharmed proved, in his mind, that he was untouchable. But here's a life lesson that cost him everything: the more you indulge in reckless behavior, the more you attract people who specialize in exploiting reckless people. Predators study their prey. They watch patterns, identify weaknesses, and strike when the target is most confident. Khalid had no idea he'd been marked for death long before he ever set foot in Geneva. If you've ever known someone who thought their success made them invincible, hit that like button. Because pride always comes before the fall. Her name was Lina Farouk, or at least, that's what her Emirates Airlines badge claimed. 31 years old, strikingly beautiful, with the kind of polished professionalism that makes wealthy passengers feel important. She served champagne without spilling a drop, offered assistance with a warm smile, and seemed to disappear the moment her duties ended. But everything about Lina was a carefully constructed lie. Intelligence sources later revealed fragments of her real background, whispers of connections to activist networks in Istanbul, rumors of ties to shadow organizations that specialized in making problems disappear. Some claimed she'd been trained by former KGB operatives. Others believed she worked freelance, selling her unique skills to the highest bidder. What was certain was this: Lina didn't accidentally cross paths with Sheikh Khalid. She'd been tracking him for months. Flight records showed she'd requested specific routes that aligned with his travel schedule. Hotel security footage caught her in lobbies of establishments he frequented, always days before his arrival, always observing from a distance. She studied his preferences, the drinks he ordered, the type of women who caught his attention, the specific compliments that made him feel powerful. She learned his weaknesses like a scientist studying a lab specimen. By the time they met face-to-face in Geneva, Lena knew exactly which psychological buttons to push. This level of preparation wasn't passion or coincidence, it was professional execution. Someone had paid her to get close to Khalid. Someone with resources, connections, and a very specific agenda. But who? And why? The beauty of using a honey trap assassination is its deniability. If a billionaire dies after a night with a beautiful woman, people assume heart attack, drug overdose, or simple coincidence. They don't immediately think international conspiracy. Lena's training extended far beyond seduction. Toxicology experts believe she used a rare isotope, possibly polonium or thallium, delivered through skin contact or contaminated substances. These poisons create symptoms that develop slowly, giving the assassin time to vanish before anyone realizes murder has occurred. The most chilling detail? This wasn't her first job. After Khalid's death, intelligence agencies began connecting dots to other mysterious deaths: Russian oligarchs who died from sudden illness, African dictators who succumbed to unknown viruses, Middle Eastern businessmen who developed unexplained organ failure. In each case, witnesses remembered a beautiful woman. Always professional. Always charming. Always gone by morning. Lena, or whoever she really was, had turned assassination into an art form. Here's what bothers me. If you're watching this and haven't shared it yet, why not? These stories need to reach people who might be targets themselves. Sharing literally costs you nothing, but it could save someone's life. Geneva, Switzerland. The Four Seasons Hotel. March 15th. The night that sealed Sheikh Khalid's fate. Khalid had just finished a tense meeting with European financiers about his frozen assets. Corruption investigations were closing in, and he needed to move billions before governments could seize everything. The stress was getting to him, and he needed a distraction. That's when he noticed her. Lena sat at the hotel bar, wearing a tailored black dress that suggested money without screaming wealth. She nursed a martini and seemed completely absorbed in a book, the kind of detail that makes a person appear interesting rather than desperate. Classic psychological manipulation: appear unavailable to make yourself more desirable. Khalid approached with his usual arrogance. Within minutes, he was bragging about his wealth, his influence, his power to make world leaders sweat. He told her about deals worth more than small countries' GDP, about politicians who begged for his endorsement, about enemies who disappeared after crossing him. Everything Lena needed to know about his network, his vulnerabilities, his fears. He volunteered freely, thinking he was impressing her. She played her role perfectly. Fascinated by his stories but not desperate for his attention. Impressed by his power but not intimidated by it. Available but not easy. Hours passed. The bar emptied. Khalid's security team maintained their distance, as trained, close enough to respond to threats, far enough away to provide privacy for their boss's indulgences. By midnight, Lena was laughing at his jokes. By 1 a.m., her hand was resting on his arm. By 2 a.m., she was whispering suggestions that made his pulse race. "My room has a better view," she said, sliding him her keycard. In that moment, Khalid believed he was the hunter. He had no idea he was walking into a trap that had been months in the making. The elevator ride to the 7th floor was the last time Sheikh Khalid Al-Mansour would feel truly powerful. What happened in that hotel room remains classified, but forensics experts believe the poison was delivered through physical contact, possibly through lipstick, perfume, or other intimate substances that would ensure absorption through skin and mucous membranes. The genius of the method was its delayed action. Khalid would wake up feeling fine, maybe even triumphant. Lena would be long gone. By the time symptoms appeared, no one would connect his illness to a woman he'd met in a bar. By morning, Khalid's body had already begun its irreversible decline. He just didn't know it yet. Comment below, do you think powerful people deserve what happens when they abuse their position? Because what comes next will test your sense of justice. The morning after Geneva, Sheikh Khalid woke up feeling like a champion. The night had been everything he'd hoped for, and Lena was gone without awkward goodbyes, exactly how he preferred these encounters. But by 10 a.m., something felt wrong. It started as a dull ache in his stomach, the kind you might attribute to too much alcohol or rich food. Then came the nausea, waves of it that made him grip the marble bathroom counter until his knuckles turned white. By noon, he was vomiting violently. By evening, his skin had developed a yellowish tint that expensive lighting couldn't hide. His personal physician, Dr. Hassan, was summoned immediately. Blood work revealed elevated liver enzymes, kidney dysfunction, and white blood cell counts that suggested massive internal trauma. It's probably just exhaustion, Dr. Hassan assured him. Rich food, stress from the meetings, perhaps a stomach virus. But deep down, both men knew this was something else entirely. Over the next 48 hours, Khalid's condition deteriorated rapidly. His fingernails developed distinctive blue lines, a telltale sign of heavy metal poisoning. His gums began bleeding spontaneously. His hair started falling out in clumps. Most terrifying of all were the neurological symptoms. Khalid would be lucid one moment, conducting business calls with perfect clarity, then slip into paranoid delusions where he claimed invisible enemies were watching him through the walls. Swiss specialists were flown in under extreme secrecy. Blood samples were rushed to laboratories in 3 different countries. Every test revealed the same horrifying truth: something was systematically destroying his organs from the inside out. But what? And how? The poison, whatever it was, had been chosen specifically for its subtlety. This wasn't cyanide or arsenic, substances that kill quickly and obviously. This was something designed to mimic natural illness while ensuring a slow, agonizing death. Khalid's security team launched a frantic investigation. Who had access to his food? Who had prepared his drinks? By the 3rd week, Khalid could barely stand. His once commanding voice had become a whisper. The man who had dominated boardrooms and intimidated world leaders was now afraid to drink water without supervision. His family watched in horror as their patriarch, the source of their wealth and influence, withered before their eyes. Private nurses worked around the clock, but they were fighting an enemy they couldn't identify. And somewhere in the world, Lena was probably enjoying a glass of wine, watching news reports about a mysterious illness affecting a prominent businessman. If you're watching this and you still haven't subscribed, I honestly don't understand you. Do you not care about exposing these kinds of calculated murders? Are you not interested in learning how the powerful fall? Hit subscribe, it literally takes 1 second, and it helps me continue investigating cases like this. As Sheikh Khalid's condition worsened, his inner circle launched the most expensive private investigation in Swiss history. Money was no object. They hired former intelligence operatives, forensic specialists, and security consultants from 5 different countries. The investigators discovered something that chilled them to the bone: the flight attendant never existed. Lena Farouk's Emirates Airlines employee ID was expertly forged. Her passport, while sophisticated enough to pass hotel security, contained subtle irregularities that suggested professional counterfeiting. Her credit cards traced back to shell companies registered in countries with bank secrecy laws. Hotel security footage showed her arriving at the Four Seasons 3 hours before their encounter, but no record existed of her checking in. She had simply appeared in the bar as if materializing from thin air. More disturbing were the connections investigators began making to other mysterious deaths across Europe and the Middle East. Alexander Petrov, a Russian energy magnate, had died 6 months earlier from sudden organ failure after meeting a beautiful woman in a Monte Carlo casino. Victor Hassan, a Syrian arms dealer, had succumbed to unknown toxins following a liaison with a mysterious woman in Istanbul. Ahmed al-Rashid, a Saudi financier, had died from inexplicable neurological collapse after a weekend with a woman whose identity was never confirmed. In each case, the symptoms were nearly identical to Khalid's: slow-acting organ failure, neurological deterioration, and blood work that suggested exotic poisoning without revealing the specific agent. 3 theories emerged about who was behind these coordinated assassinations. Intelligence agencies believed these deaths were part of a broader campaign to eliminate individuals who posed threats to certain governments. Khalid's business dealings had made enemies in Moscow, Tehran, and Washington. His death would benefit multiple parties. With Khalid's frozen assets worth over $8 billion, his death would trigger a massive redistribution of wealth. Investment firms, rival oil companies, and international banks all stood to profit from his demise. Khalid had destroyed many lives building his empire. Former business partners, silenced whistleblowers, and abandoned associates all had reasons to want him dead. Perhaps one of them had hired Lena for revenge. But here's what none of these theories could explain: how did the killers know Khalid would be in Geneva that night? How did they predict his exact movements and preferences? How did they recruit and train someone like Lena? This wasn't opportunistic murder, it was a sophisticated operation that required months of planning, unlimited resources, and connections to intelligence-grade poisons. The investigators realized they weren't just hunting a single assassin. They were uncovering a network that specialized in making powerful people disappear while maintaining complete deniability. And if you're someone who refuses to comment on videos like this, asking yourself, what are you afraid of? What's stopping you from engaging with content that exposes the truth about how the elite destroy each other? Leave a comment, tell me why some people are too scared to face these realities. 6 weeks. That's how long Sheikh Khalid al-Mansour took to die. 6 weeks of agony that no amount of money could alleviate. The man who had once bought his way out of every problem discovered that wealth becomes meaningless when your body is betraying you at the cellular level. By the 4th week, Khalid couldn't keep food down. His weight dropped from 190 pounds to 140 pounds. His once thick hair had fallen out completely, and his skin had taken on the waxy appearance of advanced toxicity. The psychological torture was worse than the physical symptoms. Khalid knew he was dying, but doctors couldn't tell him why or how. He lay in his Geneva medical suite, connected to machines that monitored his declining vital signs, wondering who had done this to him and why. In his final lucid moments, he kept returning to that night at the Four Seasons. The woman, he would whisper to his security chief. Find the woman. But Lena had vanished more completely than any person his investigators had ever tried to track. No financial trails, no communication records, no physical evidence beyond a few hotel security images that might not even show her real face. His family made desperate attempts to save him. Experimental treatments were flown in from Japan. Chelation therapy specialists arrived from Germany. Stem cell researchers offered unproven procedures that cost millions but provided no hope. Nothing worked. The poison, whatever it was, had been designed to be irreversible once it began its work. By the 5th week, Khalid's kidneys had failed completely. His liver was shutting down. His heart, weakened, could barely pump blood through his devastated body. The final week was spent in and out of consciousness. His family maintained a vigil, but there was nothing left of the powerful patriarch they had known. The sheikh who had once commanded oil prices and influenced international politics was now a skeletal figure whose greatest victory was managing to whisper a few words. On a Tuesday morning in May, Sheikh Khalid Al Mansur's heart stopped beating. The official cause of death was listed as multiple organ failure due to unknown toxicity. His final asset, his life, had been stolen by someone who had gotten close enough to touch him. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew his story. A man who had built his empire by exploiting others' trust had died because he'd trusted the wrong person. The official statement released by the Al Mansur family was brief and sanitized. Sheikh Khalid passed away peacefully after a brief illness. He is survived by his wife and 3 children. No mention of poison. No mention of mysterious women. No mention of international investigations. Just the kind of respectful obituary that wealthy families buy to protect their reputation. But in the shadowy world of international finance and intelligence, Khalid's death became legend. Lena became a code name whispered in secure facilities and private clubs. Intelligence operatives traded theories about her identity, her methods, and her next target. Some claimed she was a former Mossad agent. Others believed she was trained by Russian SVR. A few insisted she was an independent contractor who sold her services to the highest bidder. The truth was more terrifying, nobody knew for certain. Sightings were reported everywhere. A woman matching her description was spotted in a Dubai hotel bar, chatting with a prominent arms dealer. Security footage from a Berlin restaurant showed someone similar dining with a Russian oligarch who died 2 weeks later from sudden cardiac arrest. A Monaco casino manager swore he'd seen her playing poker with a Chinese tech billionaire who subsequently died in a car accident. Were these the same person? Copycat killers? Paranoid imagination from people who now suspected every beautiful woman of being an assassin? The uncertainty was part of the weapon's design. When powerful people can't distinguish between genuine attraction and calculated murder, they become paranoid, isolated, and vulnerable in new ways. Some of Khalid's former associates hired food tasters and avoided all social interactions with strangers. Others installed medical monitoring equipment in their homes, hoping to detect poisoning before it became irreversible. But the smartest ones changed their behavior entirely. They stopped living double lives. They stopped taking reckless risks. They recognized that in a world where assassination could be disguised as seduction, survival required constant vigilance. The Lena effect rippled. Private security companies reported unprecedented demand for services. Background check firms specialized in vetting potential romantic partners. Medical facilities developed protocols for detecting exotic poisons. Fear had become the new luxury item among the wealthy and powerful. So what can we learn from Sheikh Khalid Al Mansur's deadly encounter with a phantom assassin? Living a double life makes you vulnerable to people who specialize in exploiting secrets. When you're constantly lying about who you are, you lose the ability to spot when others are deceiving you. Power without wisdom is just sophisticated suicide. Khalid believed his wealth made him untouchable, but it actually made him a more attractive target for sophisticated predators. Reckless pleasure always comes with a price. Every decision to prioritize immediate gratification over long-term safety increases your exposure to people who study your weaknesses. Trust is a luxury that powerful people can't afford. In a world where assassination can be disguised as romance, paranoia isn't mental illness, it's survival instinct. Justice finds its way to everyone, regardless of wealth or influence. Khalid spent decades exploiting others without consequences, but eventually, his victims found a way to reach him. The most haunting aspect of this story isn't that a billionaire was murdered. It's that somewhere in the world, Lena is still out there, studying her next target, perfecting her cover story, preparing to get close to someone who believes they're too powerful to be touched. Maybe that person is watching this video right now. If this investigation opened your eyes to how the elite destroy each other, subscribe immediately. These stories take months to research and verify. The least you can do is show some support for content that exposes the truth about power, betrayal, and deadly consequences.